Welcome, everyone. Good morning to folks in the US and good evening to people from the rest of the world. We're all super excited for today's session. I'm sure all of you have, been closely seeing what's happening, but we have launched, a mobile device management platform that's cross OS. This is one of the many series that we're going to have through December, Jan, and Feb, where we'll be closely working with MSP and IT teams to help them understand what we have built, why this is super critical for you folks, and how this sort of transforms the MSP and the IT world for us. This is going to be a very interesting session. So keep the questions coming in the Q&A. And feel free to also share your thoughts, inputs. We also have some interesting polls ahead. So let's dive right in. So I have with me three very important folks. I have Manish, who has been closely working in the MSP space for the last 8 years with clients, and he comes with immense knowledge on how MSPs have been transforming digitally and what MDM really is for MSPs. So he is going to closely work with us today to set the pace for 2026. We have Sriram, who's an expert in the IT SM and IT field, and he has some interesting thoughts on how mobile device management fits into the IT team. And I'm Shri. I work closely with the SuperOps team here in the product marketing team, where we're going to closely work together to see what MDM is, really unpack it, and see what we really need to do in 2026. With that in place, just for a few folks who are just jumping in, if you're not familiar with what SuperOps is a unified PSA and RMM platform with a really powerful endpoint management, remote monitoring, project management, and patch management in place, with the MDM being a very important part of the picture today. And all of this is powered by a very powerful integration ecosystem, and all again powered by AI, which seems to be the future for 26, 27, and 28. And what we really did is build on trust and diligence, right? So our customers are across the globe. So we are GDPR compliant, SOC 2, HIPAA, and we have been named the RMM category of the by channel program for the year. And what this really means is it all comes down to what our customers have been saying. So over the last 2 years before we launched MDM, we have a very close relationship with our customers where we try and understand what's working, what's not working, and that translates to the way we build our products. And you'd see that we are known as one of the platforms out there that's the easiest to set up, and we also have the best support. And this journey actually has taken us to where we are today, because over the last 2 years, our customers have been talking about how mobile device management is becoming the forefront of endpoint management. So we did some digging, and we launched a cross-platform mobile device management for Apple and Android devices. And this is just the start of the story. We have very interesting stuff that's lined up for the roadmap as well, which we will be talking about. But quickly getting into why we really did this at this point in time. There are three important pillars that's driving this, right? As I'm sure all of you in the room are familiar with this. Device sprawl is a real challenge. We are seeing that a lot more of endpoint-based devices are coming in, and people are just working hybrid everywhere, with more remote workers sort of joining the workforce. And that puts a big expectation on IT and MSP teams to be there in terms of compliance and security while keeping their teams and their devices lean. So when we did some research, we realized that you really need a reliable MDM platform that lets IT and MSP teams scale. And this is what we found, right? So when we went a bit more deeper into what's currently happening in the MDM space, this really popped up, right? This was an interesting thing that we found. You have folks that are using Intune for some aspect of mobile device management, and then you're probably using another RMM tool to manage your Windows, Linux, Mac, and endpoint management and network devices. And then you're using a service desk and potentially working with an integration together. But the problem is it just solves one small piece of the puzzle, and it doesn't really make sense from an operational standpoint. Or there's a good chance you're using a standalone MDM tool. And then you're sort of trying to plug that in with a standard RMM tool and potentially a standard service desk. And again, the story stays the same, where these tools probably do the basics, but not really let you scale because they're not built as one. And there's a third aspect of customers that we spoke to, which is you have a good unified MDM and RMM, but you have a very weak integration with the service desk that probably just takes care of L1 of data flow, but doesn't really fulfill the need when it comes to a deep integration. And that's where we really were at in the end of the day. So that leads to two major business impacts that we saw for IT and MSPs. And here's where I would love for Sriram to first share his thoughts on what's been happening on the IT front and then potentially Manish on the MSP front.
Thank you so much, Srinidhi, for that. Once again, welcome everybody to this session. So, like Srinidhi mentioned, there is a critical reason why we're building MDM because that was one of the major missing piece of the puzzle that we had to solve for our existing users and for all the prospects who are looking for a solution that unifies their entire endpoint management tech stack. So, coming from a lens of IT teams, right, what it really means for them, why we are doing MDM right now as opposed to any time, because like you said, more often than not, you see your device sprawl is being a major issue because most of the times your network monitoring is done on a different tool like an Orvic or Domos. You have your endpoints in one system and mobile device. Even if you manage to get a system that does both network monitoring and endpoint management in one tool, it's always difficult to find that tool that will also do MDM. So what this means for an internal IT team is the loss of endpoint visibility when they are managing larger organizations and diverse departments and groups. So 75%, 74%, almost close to 75, most MDMs still treat mobile devices as secondary devices which resides outside their endpoint management tool. And you have IT teams using 3+ tools. Like what it also means is you're not just being controlled by the whole tool sprawl, but you are also being very reactive, which comes to the very important point, which is managing the policies and compliances. So you don't, like, as an IT team, you are not there to fix things when they break. You're there to ensure that these issues don't happen in the first place. What happens with MDM being in a separate tool is the fact that you have three different tools in which you're managing policies. It's already confusing enough for you to set up policy in one device to push out patches and updates for your endpoint devices, but you also have another MDM tool for which you have to create the same logic for your different departments. So that is one of the major pain points that we also saw, because setting up proactive IT management becomes difficult when your endpoint visibility is in silos. And that's the policy drift that we are talking about. A lot of incidents that we've seen in the past year based on the reports that we had read and our product team was working on. One of the key things that we were able to find was all these frequent incidents happened or the security breaches happened because the IT team did not have a complete visibility on their endpoint control. Like I said, everything resides in a different tool. And also, IT leaders, when they're looking at reports, let's say I manage an IT team of 25 people. I have a different report coming in from each of my department heads. There's somebody who's looking care of the mobile devices in a different tool, network devices in a different tool. There are tickets coming in from all over the place in another tool, which has been a place where it leads to a lot of chaos for IT teams who are trying to proactively solve for this, which leads to all of these compliance risks. So this is one of the key reasons we thought tomorrow everybody is talking about the whole vision of agentic AI or AI being the game changer. Like one of the core principles of AI is your AI or agentic AI, whatever it might be, it is only as good as the context that it's fed into it. So if your data still resides in silos, your AI that's going to work on top of it is not going to give you accurate results. So like Srinidhi, particularly pointed out earlier, we saw this as an opportunity. If we want AI to really deliver some meaningful results, it only makes sense for us to have all of the endpoints in one place and also the service desk in the same place, so that we cover both endpoint management and service delivery on one platform, and the AI that's working on top of the system of records could deliver meaningful results. So that's why we are introducing the whole mobile device management for IT teams, and this is the key value that it's going to pitch as well. And I'm going to pass my mic on to Manish, who has a lot of insights on what this means for MSPs who are working with this, and MSPs who are looking to use SuperOps in the near future as well. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you so much, Sriram. But yeah, the it's been very nice hearing Srinidhi and Sriram talk about all of the challenges that they've seen a lot of their the IT pros face, right? The challenges of a disjointed work system and the IT challenges faced by internal IT teams on an everyday basis are very, very real problems. And I'm sure a lot of MSPs might also relate to them as well, because some of these problems are universal, especially when you're talking about tool sprawl, inefficiencies due to context switching. But the thing is, when you look at all of these issues that Srinidhi and Shreera mentioned through the POV of an MSP, they have a very real ability to stifle your business growth as well. And that causes a much more serious problem, because when you're looking at all of these issues that you have on screen. Let's go by order, where you have the first problem, which is just going to be your operational overhead. Because just the sheer efficiency of how well your team is able to manage these devices across these multiple tools that you're using in your tech stack, that poses your first challenge, right? So when you're talking about the tools that you're using, just the tool switching and context switching consumes a lot of time, effort, and resources that your team could be using to focus on more strategic tasks. But it also kind of seriously impacts the sort of service that you're delivering, right? It creates a lot of inconsistencies. You leave a lot of margin for error. And of course, these are things that your clients are eventually bound to notice, right? So the second problem is about visibility. And but this is not just from getting the full picture of your client's device landscape from an operational point of view, but it also applies from a billing point of view. So when you're looking at all of the devices that you're billing for, with any sort of gaps in billing, you don't really know exactly how much money you're leaving on the table, and that's a bigger, more dangerous problem to solve. Especially if you know the margins, you have a game plan in place to sort of maybe close that gap. But if you don't have visibility into exactly what the delta is going to be, you have a much more serious problem on your hands, right? So with gaps in billing, you don't really know what devices exist, and you're not even managing them. What are these shadow devices doing in your network? And of course, these also cause serious cybersecurity concerns down the line. But also, even for the devices that you manage, if it's not really tied close to billing, you have no clue how many devices you're actually managing, but you're not charging for. So for you, you also have not just a billing, like a billing blind spot, you also have an eventual reporting blind spot, where you don't really know if all of these tools are disjointed. You don't really know exactly what devices for where the inefficiencies lie, what devices are being managed where. And of course, all of these inefficiencies, these errors, these issues, all of these culminate into like very poor customer experiences, where you're not really able to deliver to the best of your MSP's capabilities. And this slowly builds and compounds over time, eroding the kind of trust and the sort of relationships that you're building with your clients over your months and years, right? So what this is also going to affect is, because like your clients don't just see you as another vendor, right? They see you as a tech partner. You at least want them in an ideal scenario to look at you as a tech partner, where you also equally have stakes in their business to make sure that they're running smoothly. They are well equipped to run their business at their productive best, right? So what this is also going to affect is the sort of confidence that they have in your business. This is not just going to affect the existing contract that you have, but the scope that you have to upsell with them, the sort of word of mouth that you might get with with champions who would confidently go out and refer your name to another fellow client of theirs. So these are all different things that are going to cost you in the long run, especially in terms of growth, in terms of the sort of revenue that you're going to be making. It's not just a leak in the short term that we're dealing with, but eventually in the long term, if your MDM isn't part of a unified consolidated platform, if it isn't close to billing, you are absolutely losing revenue, and you are hurting your chances at much more accelerated growth, right? So these are all serious issues. And modern MSPs of today really need that visibility, they really need that control, and they really need that unified experience to basically pull it all together and not just another tool in the mix just adding to the chaos, right? So these are some of the huge issues that our team really saw when we started digging down, and those are the exact same issues that Srinidhi was also talking about. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to be passing it back to Srinidhi, who's going to be talking about these exact same issues from a very deep point of view. So over to you, Srinidhi.
Thanks, Manish. And thanks, Sriram. So, two things really stand out for us, folks, which is revenue optimization with MDM embedded into your tech stack for MSPs, and service delivery optimization for IT teams, keeping compliance and trust as the forefront, right? And that's why I think SuperOps is positioned well to bring MDM into the picture. The goal for us is that now that we are one platform that's bringing all the necessary tools into one single pane for both MSPs and ITs, now can we help them scale, and now can we add a layer of AI to this that can automate some of the things that's is a burning concern for MSP and IT teams today. Now, with that, let's go deeper into the MDM specifically. I know some of the questions have been around, hey, how does this really stack up against JAMF, ADG? So we're going to address some of those things as well. Now, folks, it has been a month since we launched, and the first launch is about ensuring that MSP and IT teams need everything that they need to get started. And just like how SuperOps' ethos has always been, we're gonna double down next year, and that's why I also have Ani with me on the call, who's a product manager, who's gonna walk us through the roadmap as well once I finish the product demo now, right? So, in a nutshell, these are the different aspects that the MDM really focuses on, with emphasis on ensuring that your cross OS management, which is your Apple and Android devices, are managed in one place. Your rollback control is in order, and you have a very deep policy that lets you manage the restrictions and configurations that Apple and Android mandate. And the idea, like I said, is keep it zero touch, keep the onboarding and offboarding process as simple as possible. All right. With that, let's now get into the baked goods. Now, I'm sure some of you are already familiar with the platform. This is the asset list view where you have the list of all assets coming in with your Android, iOS devices also here in one single pane. You can create as many views as possible. So if you're a technician or an IT team member, you'd be able to see all the devices in. And let's see how the enrollment process really looks like. And then let's go into policies and the rest of it. Now, when you go into the settings tab, you will find a section called MDM configuration. And we wanted to build a complete multi-tenant platform for our MSP teams and even for IT teams that could potentially have multiple ABM accounts, APN, enterprise accounts, and so on. So as you can see here, I have a few customers for whom we have set up both Android and Apple. And you can just click on new MDM configuration on top and select the client that you want to set it up for. If you're an IT team member, you can skip this step and you'd be able to directly connect with your Android enterprise and APN credentials. Let's go into a client that's already has these details in. Here are the Android details where the Android enterprise has been set up. And you also have the Apple where the APN certificate has been set up. And you can also, tie up with Apple Business Manager to do the initial enrollment and bring all the devices in. Right. So once your Android enterprise is set up, we want to make the process super simple for unsupervised or potentially BYOD devices because these are the ones that usually are not captured by automatic device enrollment or zero touch deployment that Android provides. And that's where we provide a manual enrollment option. And you'd notice that this is on the same page where your settings happens because we don't want you to move from multiple different sections. So the moment you set up your initial handshakes with Android and Apple, you can start your enrollment process, right? So again, you can decide that this is for a BYOD device. And if you know which client this is for, quickly generate a QR code. And this can also be sent as an email to the user where the user can just open up their phone and get enrolled. And you'll be able to start managing those devices right off the bat, right? Or you can also set up, like I said, an automated device enrollment option that Apple provides, where you can, again, tie up with Apple Device Manager, bring all the devices in, and we do a sync every day, and you can also do a manual sync. And we have a 4-step process here, because once you bring the devices in, one thing that we did notice when we built it in our initial product research was that some of you folks were saying that, hey, the enrollment process is not that seamless. The devices claim to have come in, but it's not really here. And we want to solve that problem by giving you a 4-stage process to this, right? So once the devices are synced in, you will know what is yet to be enrolled and what is ready to be enrolled, which means, hey, are the right properties and details in for us to push the devices in. And finally, if the devices are enrolled into the system or not. And you would notice that the moment that they are enrolled, you'd be able to tie it to a specific site, requester, and in case you have different device groups, you can also ensure that it falls under the right device group. So your initial enrollment process is going to be super seamless, and you will know at each stage what exactly is happening. Now, let's go deeper into the policies. And we have multiple policy hierarchy layers. And what we again realized is MSP and IT teams need some amount of standardization to streamline policies across their Android and iOS devices, but yet still have the flexibility to potentially have different kinds of policies for an HR department versus a design teams department, right? And the advanced hierarchy helps you do that. So you can create a root policy, which gives you a common set of policies across all your mobile devices. But then you can go in depth with some of your other departments or even your other clients and have very specific granular policies that only apply to that specific client. Now, let's go deeper into an Apple iPad policy potentially. And the moment the device is about to be enrolled, and we did see the automated device enrollment journey earlier, another friction point that we noticed was when the user has to go through the initial steps of enrollment, there seems to be too many options for them to click on. So the ADE profile that you see here lets you as an IT team control that, right? So you can decide what setup panes are super critical for you versus the ones that aren't. And for example, location services is a no-brainer, Face ID, privacy settings, yes, but things like Siri and terms and conditions can potentially be skipped. So we give you that control to manage that in the end of the day. And now, once you set up the ADE, the next thing that you want to do is potentially set up your network where your Wi-Fi configurations are in place, along with a proxy. Your password layer is again in connect with your organization structure. You can either keep it simple or provide really in-depth, comprehensive connections here as well. And we also take care of your OS updates and your app management updates. So here's where, again, one more aspect that we notice is that sometimes you want to push out your minor updates a lot more sooner, and your major updates could potentially wait for some more time. So you can decide how you want to treat your minor and major updates. And in case you want to enforce it only for certain versions, you have that flexibility in the end of the day as well. Now, we also want to be very cognizant of the user experience here, right? So, I mean, the end user experience. So, which is why we let them, push out RSRs, so the emergency patches that Apple mandates sometimes. So, in case you as an IT team want to give that control to users, you'll be able to set that up here. And you can also let them decide if they want to manage the downloads or if the IT team completely wants to take control of it. And similarly with the app management, we integrate with VPP or apps and books as we call it right now, where all your managed licenses are being pulled in, and you can then, sort of add some of these apps into the picture, or you can also bring in some of these public apps into the store and start deploying these apps at a specific time and date. And when we do this, we also notice that sometimes your licenses might not be set up yet for a specific site. So you can install your public apps even without it and go ahead and configure it later, so that from a mobile end user standpoint, all the apps that are required are in place, right? So this takes care of the configuration, but the restrictions, and Apple provides quite in-depth granular options there. And we have ensured that all those options are available for you to manage as well. And we have layered it into these 5 different sections that you see here, where your general and security section takes care of protecting your devices. So important things like ensuring that your camera, Bluetooth, FaceTime can be turned on and off. You decide what kind of sharing mechanism the device has, whether things can be shared on AirDrop or AirPint. Ensuring that your work data does not really flow over to your unsupervised data. So these are things that you can control, and you can also do this for supervised versus unsupervised devices, where the controls are a lot more specific, and with supervised you have a lot more controls in place. With security, your authentication layer can be controlled, and you can also ensure that passwords from nearby devices are controlled to ensure that the compliance are in place. With network, you can ensure that VPN from unmanaged devices are not created, and more often than not, employees turn off Wi-Fi and you lose connectivity to devices. So all those connections are in place. And finally, with apps, we ensure that you restrict whether users can install or uninstall apps, and what kind of Safari browsings do you really want for your organization. And another thing that you'd notice is, team, we have made it all toggle on and toggle off, and this can be done on a granular level. So a specific device for a client might be okay with clearing Safari history, but that might not be the case for the rest of the devices. Okay, so this is an example of how the Apple devices looks like. This is just an overview, but there are so many policies in depth that we have created, which we're happy to sort of have a one-on-one session to see what kind of controls are important for you and go deeper into that. And similarly, we've also built very in-depth granular policies for your Android devices, specifically when your device goes missing, right? So you can have factory reset protection in place so that, when someone tries to unlock a device, you have the admin controls that kick in. You can have cross-profile copy paste again to ensure that your work profile does not really intervene with your private data, and ensure that data sharing is in place. And all of these sections that we again spoke about earlier, we have similar settings for Android. You'd be able to do it for a fully managed company-owned device separately versus a BYOD device separately. And team, we have ensured that we have brought in everything that's needed for an MSP and IT team to, get started with. But this is just the journey. As we proceed in the next quarters of next year, we'll be adding more layers and depth into these policy management sections. All right, so now that you have your device brought in and enrolled, now let's see in real time what really happens when someone complains about their MDM device, right? This is the tickets page where all your tickets across your Windows, Mac, Linux, network devices, and now MDM devices can also flow in. And I'm just taking an example of a customer here who potentially has issues with their camera, right? For folks who are not familiar with SuperOps' platform, this is the tickets page where you'd be able to pretty much manage everything that you need from one single pane. And the idea is to give as much context about the mobile device within the same platform instead of jumping to a different tool through an integration, because that costs you money and time in the end of the day. And that's exactly what we want to solve for. So in this case, when someone says they have issue with a camera, first and foremost, SuperOps can help you with a checklist. This is what we call as a unified runbook, which helps you with standard operating procedures to handle L1, L2, even training some of these folks that come in and are trying to sort of get set up in the system. Now, the technician does not have to do much. So the system will automatically understand the nature of the inquiry, which in this case is related to, something regarding the iPad that I've got to troubleshoot. And you as an IT team can give them clear instructions on how to navigate such tickets, right? An important part of this journey is always referring to documentation relevant to the iPad in question here. And that's where you can also set up the system to refer to IT documentation. So you can quickly, click on this section and see what exactly is happening. And this really helps in troubleshooting and ensuring that the journey is better. Now, we have also heavily invested in AI. So we've noticed that, technicians these days like to jump into ChatGPT, do a quick, copy paste to see what the troubleshooting steps are and then come back. And that's exactly what we wanted to avoid, because your data lies here. So your AI here is better equipped to handle troubleshooting and guide you through that journey. So with that in spirit, we have built a lot of AI tools that will help you first summarize what's happening find patterns to the ticket, and ensure that you can also convert this into a knowledge base so that other team members who face similar issues can jump in and see what exactly is happening. So I can just click on summarize ticket here to get a gist of what's happening. In this case, it's just one conversation, but imagine there's back and forths of threads, and then you're jumping in as an L2 and L3, and you're trying to break your head as to what exactly is happening. This is when L2 teams come in and say, "Hey, this does seem familiar. Are there similar tickets that I need to be looking at?" Or if you're just joining in and you are trying to figure out how exactly you want to get started with solutioning, the AI also gives you some recommended solutions to get started. Right? So, with all of this in mind, more often than not, you do have to go into the asset, open it up, and see what's happening. And that's where the unified platform experience really comes in, right? So, I can click on the asset here, and I'd be able to see the full list of details. The compliance card tells you if the passcode is compliant, but we'd be adding more and more layers here. All the critical information that you need to get started will be in this specific page. In case there's an OS installation or download happening, you'd be able to see that here. Any recent important critical activity that your users have done, along with who did it and timestamp is available. When you go deeper into the details section, you'd be able to see whether important compliance related details like, hey, is the device locator turned on? Is your activation log disabled or enabled? Is your passcode present? And for troubleshooting, sometimes you need the Wi-Fi MAC address and the Bluetooth MAC address, and all of those details are available here. In case you think some apps are causing these issues, you'd be able to see the list of apps and managed apps, any IT documentation that could be relevant to this, and any quick actions that you have to do, like clearing out your passcodes, locking the screen, enabling lost mode so that there is a message to the users and they know exactly what they need to do. Or things like erasing devices are all built in as quick troubleshooting steps right within the platform. As I was stating earlier, these policies can also be very granular for a specific iPad. So in case you need to do quick things by toggling it on and toggling it off, it's just a simple toggle off and you are good to go. So from a technician standpoint, you don't really have to jump into multiple tubes. Everything that you need is in one single place. And what this really means is going back to what Manish also mentioned earlier in terms of revenue optimization, because you and your technicians have set up the right policies and right frameworks in place, but you also want to ensure that this is available in your contracts so that your clients understand the kind of work that you've done and ensure that they have a complete picture of where their assets are. And that's where, we have the contracts page here, which gives you a good idea of what are all the different services that you're delivering. So, for example, across requesters, I'm providing a few services. And specifically across assets, these are the kind of services I'm offering, where for an iPad, I'm providing cloud services and a remote IT package. So I know as an MSP owner what really goes in, instead of this being on another tool, that being unmanaged and potentially revenue leakage happening on that front. So, this is just a glimpse of the entire platform team, where we saw a bit on how you can enroll devices, how you can manage your policies, and so on. And we have so many other interesting aspects coming up for next year. And this is probably a good segue for us to discuss a bit more on what that entire journey looks like. So, with that, I'm going to quickly stop sharing my screen and talk to you guys a bit more about what exactly is the journey when you start with MDM, right? So this is the journey that we're expecting. Reliable, zero-touch MDM platform that brings everything together. So from the moment you do device unboxing, you have your ADE and zero-touch enabled so that all your devices come in. And immediately your policy enforcement happens, starting with the ADE setup layer. And here's where the depth of the policies really come in, and you can have the kind of restrictions that you want. And more importantly, it can be per department, per client, per device group, the way you want to set it up. And finally, ready for work, where this not just sits on your RMM, this also translates to your PSA or your service desk, so that anywhere, even on your IT documentation, you have all the context needed. Now, what that means for you is your platform is now ready for AI tomorrow, maybe in 2027 or 2028, when that becomes the norm, for you to work on this specific data and ensure that all your processes are in place. Okay, now what does this really mean? Because it's been a month since we launched, but we are very excited in terms of what a modern MDM really looks like for the next year, right? So these are five major themes that we identified. It doesn't stop with Apple and Android. People are moving to Chrome OS, TV OS, and so on. And that's where we want our IT teams and MSPs also to be equipped with these tools in one single platform. Platform consolidation is not it's not a nice to have, it has become a necessity. If you don't unify in 2026, there's a good chance you'll have to do a lot of catch up in 2027 and 2028. So we want to be the one tool that brings your service desk and endpoint management unified in one single platform. We want the automation and operational layer to be on top of this. So that means standard policies, kiosk modes kicking in, streamlined workflows across your entire PSA and RMM journey. And through all of this, it has to be identity first, and zero trust security in the end of the day. So we want to ensure that we integrate with as many tools as possible so that you have everything in one single pane, and deeper support and troubleshooting capabilities that we want to bring in, such as remote support, alerting, and so on. So, with that, I want to quickly pass the mic to Ani, who has been the brain behind the MDM that we see today. And he's excited to bring in a lot of these features to the market next year. And we would love for all of you to also join in on this journey and see how that's unfolding as we take a modern approach to this.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Srinidhi. It was actually a great demo that you took it out, and really happy to see a lot of participants join in, right? Quick jumping on to the next slide of the deck, where we want to address a lot of questions around what are the capabilities that are coming up in the next a uh, few months, right? So, Srinidhi, can you move on to the next? All right, yeah. So there were a lot of questions around what is the current capabilities and what is coming up next. So macros is something that we are going full on with respect to MDM. Currently, we have the RMM agent that works with macOS delivering a lot of the outcomes, but we do realize that the entire macOS ecosystem uh, can actually be supported through MDM in a much better way, in a much tighter way, in a lot of the other aspects. So how we are envisioning macOS via MDM is to actually work in tandem with the agent and Indian put together. So monitoring wise, you can actually make use of the agent, but then the management side of things, for example, your OS management, your apps and books and software management, and a lot of the configurations and network pieces, that the MDM is pretty strong in as a protocol. So that is how we would want to solution this. MDM taking care of the management side of things, but then the RMM agent is actually pretty strong in monitoring, that can actually monitor the metrics of the devices every minute once. That is a key differentiator when it comes to the other MDMs and an RMM plus MDM combo also, guys. Monitoring is pretty basic. In the other MDMs, you don't get to see the kind of near life data on your metrics such as your CPU and all of that, etc., on a near life basis. That's because the agent is available. So we're trying to bring the best of both worlds of RMM and Indian into the Mac ecosystem and see how best we can do that. That is already in progress, and you can expect that by the end of this month, the end of this year, the Mac OS with an RMM plus Indian approach fully onboarded into SuperOps. Moving on to the Q1 of next year, that's when we're starting to look at the next set of enhancements and newer features. We're looking into AD integration. We're looking at a high-level framework to look at all the three ADs, the top three ADs out there, the Workspace, Google Workspace AD, the Azure AD, as well as the Okta AD to actually complement our existing AD integration so that your journey of the requester starts for MDM right from the AD and carry seamlessly into the MDM, and the requester and the assets are always in sync. So that is how we're looking at the AD framework. We're looking at all the top three ADs for Q1 along with the kiosk mode. So right now, Srinidhi took you through all the device types that are supported. Though we do support iPads, the kiosk mode is something that we are currently in development. It's in advanced stages of testing, and this is also something that you can expect in the early part of the Q1 here, where on the kiosk mode you can lock an iPad or an Android pad in for just one app or just two apps. So that is the kiosk mode that we're looking at. Of course, the usual alerting and reporting pieces are something that we are currently enhancing for MDM as well. This is also slated for early next quarter. And remote support. I see a lot of questions around remote support. At the moment, it is currently not available, but then we are in talks with our partners, Blastop, ISL, and a few other folks out there who can actually support remote sessions for mobile devices as well, guys. So this is something that we are working currently on, and at high level, these are the 6 or 7 things that we are looking to launch uh, early in Q1 while we do that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hani, for that. And me and Manish are just going to share a few thoughts as to how this is going to transform the IT story and a couple of updates that we have lined up from our side as well. Just to lead on to the IT story, apart from all the interesting updates Ani mentioned, so one of the things that we are also excited about from the IT perspective is for the IT teams, we have service catalog. That is something that's planned as a part of it as well. So which makes the story complete, right? So that is something that we are prioritizing as a part of the roadmap. So our goal or the vision for 2026 is to have an end-to-end system for IT teams where you not just have your endpoint management on one platform, but you can also really optimize your service delivery. Where, for instance, just take an onboarding or an offboarding scenario, right? So you have an onboarding scenario where you are expected to provision mobile devices to your end users. So you would be able to create service catalog in the future where the end users can pick up the service that they want, be it the personally enabled devices or corporate owned, personally enabled, or bring your own devices. So you can create service law catalog items for that, automate the whole service process, and then with the MDM that we have and the features that we have lined up, you're going to have the complete round all round experience in terms of managing your ITSM as well as IT service delivery as well as the mobile device management in a single place. So that's just the direction we are headed towards, which is to unify all the tech stacks that you have today so that you don't have to work in silos anymore. And you have one solution where all your technicians and service delivery partners can work towards servicing your IT requests. So that's just something from my side. From the IT front, I'd also just push it to Manish to, for his perspectives on the MSP trends for 2026. Over to you, Manish.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sriram. So we know we're very close to our time for the session, but then again, we just wanted to take the last few minutes of the session to talk about all of the trends that I've personally seen with MSPs and all of the conversations that they're having for 2026, right? So there's a lot of focus on agentic AI, there's a lot of focus on cybersecurity, obviously, and there's also a lot of focus on tech stack consolidation and a whole lot of these conversations taking the forefront, right? So especially with MDM being launched right now, this is going to tie into all of these different fronts. And what it is also going to be doing is very closely enabling you with all of the other tools that you're also currently using on SuperOps. So what we wanted to see, especially more MSPs adopting and using, is especially the sort of consolidation that SuperOps is especially going to enable, right? Because this sort of consolidation usually happens in either 1 or 2 layers, but it's only in SuperOps that this consolidation is happening on multiple different layers, right? Because one, bringing your all of bringing together devices across your different operating systems, then comes bringing together all of the different types of devices that you need to manage, whether it's your network devices, your workstations, your servers, then your mobile devices, whether it's a rugged device or a POS machine, right? And on top of that comes the final level of consolidation where you're bringing together all of the tools that you manage these devices and keep them running efficiently, right? And this is where your service delivery, your IT documentation, and or the array of all of the other tools that you use in your tech stack comes in, right? So SuperOps, especially, we realized is in a very unique place where it basically brings together all of these three things and SuperOps falls right in the middle of it, and that's exactly where we want to keep focusing and make that consolidation as powerful for you and as enabling for you as possible. And on top of that, what we also want to do is make sure that it also helps you stay as laser focused on your business revenue and your bottom line as well, right? So currently, with the sort of enablement you have the, like Srinidhi mentioned, you have the service delivery, you have the flexible contracts that are going to be enabling you to set things up. But from a visibility point of view, you also have the client efficiency reports. And with inclusion of MDM, you'll now also be able to see that consolidated reporting and the consolidated visibility that you'll get into exactly what sort of resources, what sort of time is being spent on your mobile device management as well. Understand exactly how much margins you're making, and be now you'll be able to optimize that as well right from within SuperOps. And this over the next year is only going to get more sharper and sharper as we keep making more and more enhancements and more major introductions into the billing and the invoicing landscape, just to make sure that you have all of the insights that you need and all of the capabilities that you need to make sure that you have all the tools at your disposal to make this optimization on a more iterative basis, and make sure that you're getting the most value for the money you're investing and the time you're investing for both your technician and your clients, right? So on that front, you should be able to see a lot of these features and a lot of these capabilities just roll over both from the MDM side and as well as the service delivery side over the next year. So we're very excited to be taking that journey with you, and we hope you are as well. So back to you, Srinidhi.
Thanks, Manish. Thanks, Sriram and Ani. And team, that brings us to the end of the session. But I do see that a lot more questions are rolling in. So I'm happy if Ani can spare some more time to answer some of these questions. But this session is not the all-in-one. We are going to do a lot more sessions starting Jan after the Christmas break. And specific sessions for the IT folks and the MSP folks, so that we understand what exactly you want and we shape our roadmap accordingly and we deliver what you guys want. And you can always reach out to our support team, support@superops.com, for any of the technical questions that you have. And like Sriram said, do reach out to your points of contacts in SuperOps to get MDM enabled. And we are very excited for you to test this out. With that, Ani, I think we just have one more question. Do you want to cover that up and wrap up the session?
Sure. It's from Lucas around restrict access for users not set up with MDM. Let's say an employee logs into one of the apps. There are our restrictions are actually pretty deep, Lucas. And we are currently working on the alerting framework on top of our policy. So whatever restrictions and configurations that MDM as a protocol allows, SuperOps MDM supports it. So probably Srinidhi, when she took you through the high level of the policy there, we were not able to cover all the nitty-gritties of close to 200 plus restrictions and configurations available. So probably we could go through them in detail over a separate call that we can actually take you through an entire demo. So yes, Lucas, we do have the capability, but we'll see how we can solution that and whether the right policy can be alerted for you. Yeah. But we're on top of time. I see a couple of questions come in, but probably Srinidhi, we can give
I
it
think
a
that's
wrap now. And
yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Christoph, I think that's a very interesting insight. I'll see if we can get in touch with you again to dig a bit more and have more deeper sessions on this. But folks, it's been an absolutely phenomenal session, at least for us, because we get to see a lot of interesting questions. And one thing is clear. There's clearly a need to bring all of these tools in one single place and ensure that your compliance and security is in one single place as opposed to different platforms. So we'll continue this journey in Jan, but do reach out to us and see you again in Jan for more such sessions.